Hello, good evening. Thanks for joining us. It's my name. Since May 2019, Nigeria has enjoyed uninterrupted democratic rule to advance good governance and development in the country. Many say a good credit to this lies with the judiciary arm of government charged with the responsibility of interpretation of the law. The judiciary is seen to have evolved over the years with reforms in guaranteeing transparent, fair, equity, and just hearing to all, given the importance society places on it. It has been observed that many now prefer to use the judicial channels to resolve conflicts based on its credibility of being the last hope for the common man. The judiciary and democracy are interwoven while the politicians are busy playing out politics. The judiciary remains to ensure that the games are played out by the rules. Increasingly, the polity understands that the decision of the judiciary decisions are binding. There are, however, accusations of some perceived anomalies such as corruption within the bench, inadequate judges, and the inability to deliver judgments in good time with impacts on administration of justice in the country. What is the true position? What is your take on the recent presidential election tribunal ruling that unanimous victory to President Muhammadu Buhari that is seen as the beauty of democracy and rule of law to consolidate on democratic gains? When will Nigeria become a country run fully on the rule of law? Answer some most of these after this background report put together by Dele Atumbi.
In any presidential system of government, there are three distinct arms of government that are independent of one another. Unlike the parliamentary system, where there is fusion of powers between the executive and the legislative arms, the principle of separation of powers is at play under the presidential system, which is in operation in Nigeria, having tried the parliamentary system during the First Republic. While the executive implements the law, the legislative arms makes the law, and the judiciary interprets the law as it is. In spite of the constitutional distinction of the roles of these arms of government, they must work together to evolve good governance in the interest of the people. In any democratic government, whenever there is a seeming disagreement between the executive and the legislative arms of government, either of the two is at liberty to approach the judiciary for adjudication. These have been done in several decided cases on issues relating to arms of government and among the levels of government within the federation. This is one of the reasons the judiciary is being referred to as the bastion of democracy.
The judiciary role under Section 6 of the Constitution is to ensure that the law passed by the legislatures, as enforced by the executive, is done in line with the tenets and intent of what has been passed. Essentially, among others, is the role of the judiciary in which they serve as a catalyst in ensuring balance of power between the executive and the legislatures.
Balloting and litigation thereof that comes from it, one can say with some measure of confidence that the judiciary has progressed from the very technical interpretation back then from 1999, the First Republic and Second Republic of this era, to the present. We are substantial justice and looking at the will of the people. I think the judiciary has made some progress.
The role of the judiciary in the sustenance of democratic tenets cannot be overemphasized. On several occasions, in any election year, the judiciary has been called upon to adjudicate on electoral disputes. For instance, over the conduct of 2019 general elections, 786 petitions were brought before the judiciary. 78 election petition tribunals were impaneled, with 6 panels having to adjudicate on 76 petitions from Imo State, with the highest petitions, while no petition emanated from Jigawa State.
You will agree with me that the judiciary is playing a very critical role in our democracy in this country. Right from the 1979 Constitution, you may recall that after the elections, we had the issue of Awolowo going to court, challenging the election of President Shagari. And remember, the judiciary came in to save the situation when it decided that two-thirds majority of 19 states, two-thirds of 19 states is 12 and two quarter. That was what saved the situation then. And it helped in sustaining the democracy at that time.
In the sustenance of democracy, the judiciary has acted or has played pivotal role in ensuring that we have stable constitutional democracy.
The recent judgment, for instance, where we've had the president return through the courts, and if you look at the arguments and all of that, might not be what others will think it is, but if you look at the law and the interpretation thereof, the law, like I always say, is not about feelings, it's not about emotions, it's about what is inked in the Constitution and the laws. And to that extent, I think the courts have been up to the task in interpreting the electoral laws with regard to elections.
Presidential Election Petition Court, which is the original jurisdiction of the Court of Appeal, had before it a exception for petitions. 2 were withdrawn by the petitioners and 2 were adjudicated on by the Justice Mohammed Gabal-led 5-man panel of justices, which concluded its assignment last week Wednesday. In all, observers say the judiciary has been a judicious arbiter, as the last hope of the common man, which must continuously embark on self-cleansing. In Abuja, Dele Atumbi, NTA News.
Dele Atumbi's backgrounder on the judiciary pushed out on the path for Tuesday Live Tonight. Judiciary and democracy in action. In the course of the program, we shall open the lines and calls will come through. If you're true to the program, make your input and don't break my rule. And in the course of this, turn down the volume of your television set. We shall also be going on social media. We'll take a couple of tweets, as many as they come. If time allows, we'll take all, but we may not be able to take all the tweets. Well, I have a huge team, legal luminaries and an administrator. To my immediate left tonight is the Honorable Minister of Niger Delta Affairs and also former Governor of Akwa Ibom State, also former Senator representing Northwest Central District of Akwa Ibom State, and Minority Leader in the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Good to have you on Tuesday Night Tonight.
Thank you for having me.
And once again, congratulations on your assumption of office as Minister.
Thank you.
Yunus Ustaz Osman, SAN, legal practitioner. Welcome to Tuesday Live.
Thank you very much.
Professor Tony Onyishi, Department of Public Administration and Local Government, University of Nigeria, Nsukka, also visiting Professor of Political Science and International Relations, University of Abuja. Good to have you on Tuesday Live.
Thank you very much for having me.
Dr. Kayode Ajulo, lawyer, teacher, speaker, and right activist.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to Tuesday Live.
Good evening. Thank you.
Well, a lot of issues have been raised from the backgrounds are there, and it speaks to what the judiciary is. And normally, a lot will say what happens to the judiciary during undemocratic rule and what happens during democratic rule. And when we have non-democratic rule, you find the executive and the judiciary, but the legislature normally goes on underground. Quickly, let me start from a very technical angle. Going backwards, memory lane, there was Presidential Election Petition Tribunal in 1999 after the elections, in 2003 after the elections, 2007 after the elections, and 2011 after the election, but there was none in 2015. The question is, why? If I am covered by law to put up, go into litigation and refuse to go, is that an offense? So from a technical angle, let me start with SAN. Why was there no petition in 2015?
To start with, that was a bad market for us, but good for democracy. Because in 2015, and every sincere Nigerian will have to praise Goodluck Jonathan for not going to court. Because where there is clear winner, you don't need to go to court, and the lawyers will be sincere to tell their clients that even if you go, you will win. I think Jonathan takes all the credit, and I think Nigerians will be grateful to him. It is not an offense that you don't go at all. In fact, it is better if you don't. It may mean no business for us, but the issue is that it is better for the country, because it means that we have absolute peace, which is better. Because you hardly see the white people in England and America going to court at regular times to challenge all these election petitions. I'm not saying that where you have a clear case, you should not go. But then, where you know you don't have a clear case, there is no need to waste your money. There is no need to put everybody under a very tensed atmosphere, and then you, in some of your media houses, will start delivering their own judgments on daily basis and so on. It is not fair for this country. Not NTA yet, anyway. So but if NTA does,
why did you say it was bad market for you?
No. You see, jokingly, bad market because there was no election petition.
That's good money. Okay. Now, in 2019, we have a petition. Your angle?
Well, first, let me thank you for having me, and also thank the Sun for telling the truth. Bad market because the lawyers make more money whenever we have a petition. In 2019, I think the petition was quite unnecessary, in my view. 2015, President Goodluck Jonathan, as he then was, took the credit because his decision stabilized the country and stabilized the policy. If you compare the two candidates that we had in 2019, President Buhari and then the aspirants of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar, you will see that President Buhari comes into an election with what you may call the ordinary Nigerians. I don't want to use the word talakawa. I don't like that word. But you see, the ordinary citizens are behind him. So he starts his election with about 9 million votes before you even think of what the other opponent will start with, why the other person starts with 1 vote. So when the election was over, I was surprised that the expected lead was not as wide as it should have been. And I think that is part of what we should be discussing. Because the question should not be, did President Buhari win the election? It should be, why was the margin not as wide as was expected by all? Because there were lots and lots of issues. And of course, based on his integrity and performance in the last 4 years, we expected the margin to be much wider. So I was surprised when the PDP decided to go to court at the presidential level in 2019. I thought they were going to take a cue from what happened in 2015. And that, for me, would have civilized the country more. But be that as it may, I think so far so good. The Court of Appeal, being the court of first instance in presidential election matters, has taken the step to show clearly that most of the issues they thought they had points on were no issues at all. For instance, the court has just decided that where you're able to read, you're able to communicate, and you're able to write in English, that should be accepted as something that is, could be equated with a school certificate. Because the law says school certificate or its equivalent. And for a man who had gone through various courses in the military, up to Sandhurst, risen from the rank of lieutenant and all that, all the way to brigadier general, all the way to major general, then even ruled Nigeria for the first time, ruled a second time. It was a shock to me that somebody would still raise the issue of whether you had a certificate to speak English or you did not have certificate to speak English and all that. So I think that they went to court, not so much because they felt they had points to canvass or to win the election or to win the petition, but they went to court because certain forces were pushing them. And sometimes if you sponsor me for an election and I need to account to you how much I spent, and then I lost the election, I will go to court just to let you know that I did something. And so there was really no need in 2019. Now, I tell you something, election petitions tend to fracture the polity. You know, it tends to divide the society. It does not lead to much peace. So I thank God this has been laid to rest, and we are hoping that this intention to run to the Supreme Court will now be unnecessary. It was vexatious, as a matter of fact, to hear people talking about whether the president can read and write, and somebody who has been a head of state of Nigeria, and somebody who has ruled the country as a democratically elected leader for 4 years and done so marvelously, and somebody who has been made the czar of anti-corruption in Africa by the African Union and all that, and he's still representing the country, and we are still going to court to go and ask about qualification to contest election. So it wasn't really necessary, but I thank God that the issues have been settled, and I hope the parties that push the candidate to rush to the court are now satisfied, and then the sponsors probably are also satisfied, you know, because it left to the candidate. I don't think he would have gone to the court to go and challenge that election at all. The margin was too low because we expected a wider margin.
Okay. Still on that leg, let me stay on Ajulo. Let me see whether you have a different perspective. Let me be specific here. Non-compliance with the provisions of the Electoral Acts all were brought by the PDP against President Muhammadu Buhari. Many see the judgment as landmark. Some did disagree. What's your angle?
Well, let me start.
You know,
with this
if Senator Fabio speaks, you will understand, maybe he's playing, you know, politics as usual in this game. But let me hear your angle from the technical perspective.
No, let me start from this point that judgment is something that everybody needs to commend. Commend in the sense that it distilled all the issues, raises as expected, and after the end of the day, all those issues were considered, and at the end of the day, use the position of law, that's legal principle, to settle all. This is the judgment I believe, if not because of the politics involved, the petitioner, that is the person that brought that such petition, supposed to even commend the court, supposed to even salute it, and everybody go home. But because this is a politics, Senator Akpabio, that is now the Honorable Minister, raised the issue that maybe the petitioner need to give account to his sponsor. That is why the issue. But I see it from another ground. I see it as a point that, you know, sometimes we use litigation for different purposes. And one of it is that sometimes it's another further campaign to another year. I have been a national secretary of a Labour Party. I know how it is. That is when you see some that will tell you that as long as our case is in court, we are giving hope to our supporters. So by that, we still need to continue, because the day the supporter know that it's over, it will be over. And again, we have to be sincere. We are discussing this issue because the petitioner decided to go to court. At the minute he has refused to. By May ending, after the celebration, will have the name, nobody will have mentioned it, but we are mentioning it because somebody's in court, and that's why you see that even if we have another Supreme Court, they would like to go there. And having said that, it is the right of every petitioner to go to court. It is the right. Whether truly you won the election, you did not. You raised the issue of substantial compliance. It has been the sing song. If you are filing an election petition today, despite the fact that you have different issues for the court to consider, the issue of substantial compliance will be one of it. So we shouldn't see it as one Eldorado or a name that scares people. It won't, I'm very sure. The learners will agree with me that we have been used to that. But basic thing is this. This is an election that by the time you look at the issue brought forward before the court, it's unlovable. Every day I do ask myself the question, how would it have been in this country to mention that a general in Nigerian army can be faulted in the issue of education and qualification? It sounds very hollow. In my family then, I remember one of my uncle, I think he rose up to a position, I think warrant officer. Even this is the man that taught me the little I know when it comes to English language. We have, and this is somebody that has not even risen to that position of for you to be a general in Nigeria army, you need to go at least to war college. I don't really know what they call it now. And anyway, so many people may talk about politics here, but the issue, let's consider the issue of law. By that provision for educational qualification, I'm not talking of if anybody want to be a lecturer. I'm not talking of if somebody want to work with NTA. NTA has its own policy and now what you need, like HR, that's human resources. But for the purpose of elective office in Nigeria, it requires simple minimum qualification that talk about school cert. And school cert have been so defined about equivalent of that school cert. I remember about 5 months ago, we discussed this issue. Even I believe in this studio, when I say you don't even need certificate to run for president of this country, because what really the simple test of that is so well stated. Primary school, or you've attended the secondary school. Even if you refuse to attend all this, having worked for 10 years, either in public service, public sector or private sector, that means that today, even if I ask anybody working for me without school, if I can so attest to the fact that he had worked in my establishment for 10 years, should surpass it. I believe this is just a distraction. This is just a way that, politics, everything goes in politics, and sentiment could be raised, and sometimes many people may want to embarrass you. And forgetting that as we are trying to embarrass the office of that office, we are embarrassing ourselves. But as it is, I won't like to take your time because I'm sure that would like to talk. This thing is so clear. This is politics, and I believe politics should be isolated from issues, because when it comes to law, it is not sentiment. Why it is allowed for you to expand and to protect and display your sentiment when it comes to law. The court will look at the issue as it is, then guided by the authorities and the laws of the land, then the court will so. Because today many people I will see on the social media will say, imagine we have a Nigerian president, if you want to employ your staff, you will need so. That's what it is. But we're talking of the constitutional provision, and that is what the court followed. And I think we should continue to commend that judgment delivered by Justice Garba and others.
Judiciary and democracy in action. We'll be pushing it and pulling out. Let me go to the crux of the matter now, to Professor Onyeshi. The rule of law in our democratic journey so far, there has been this fear in 1999 that we may not get up to 20 years, but we have had it uninterrupted. Judiciary, rule of law in this journey so far. What's your assessment of it?
Well, thank you very much. I've listened to the submissions of the learned Sam, the Honorable Minister, and the learned doctor by my side. My position is that it is good to talk about legal technicalities and to talk about in a language understood by learned men and those who have equivalent knowledge. But it is also important to consider the citizenry. Are you following? This whole interpretation, this whole social media judgment and speculation, even before the judgment was delivered, arises from a problem. It is a problem of institutional weakness. I'll give you an example. When judgment about Zamfara was delivered, the controversy that was stoked is not so much like this one. Do you know the reason? The law is in black and white. Are you following? Yeah. Those of us who are educated know that equivalent of WAEC, that the course that even the president attended, the first course he attended before he moved up, is more than equivalent of WAEC. Okay. You know what I'm saying? But we are speaking to the specificity of the law. Institutional reform is about putting it in black and white, particularly when issues of politics are involved. The ordinary man, the ordinary voter, does not understand it this way. You know what I'm saying? In areas where the laws, after all, after the presidential election, we have had about 2 or 3 gubernatorial judgments. Why didn't they raise eyebrow? It is the same thing. There's somebody benefiting from it somewhere. The president who is looked upon by social media judges to be a beneficiary was a sufferer. He has been a sufferer. This time he's presumed to be a beneficiary. The reason is that there is a weakness somewhere, which is detached from the person of the beneficiary of the judgment or the sufferer of the judgment. As a political scientist, what I believe in is the problem of rule of law in this country is the reluctance on part particularly of members of the executive, that is talking about politicians, to actually drive, if you like, push institutional reforms to an extent, to a level where the whole something will become so transparent. There's nowhere you don't have contestation. You had contestation with Bush Jr. The President Trump started contestation. They're even saying that he was voted by minorities. Herman Zegler and others wrote a book in the beginning of this century called it Approaching Democracy. And the illustrative and anecdotal materials came from America. They say even in America, since 1776, we are still approaching democracy. Now, let me come back to saying that going to court is unnecessary. As a scientist, as far as I'm concerned, in the spirit of approaching democracy, a lot of issues have arisen. Like once somebody said on the 12th of September, a day after that judgment in Sunrise, and I agree with him, he's a legal person. He said, if for nothing, that judgment, that contestation has carried to students a step further, if not so many notches up. Are you following? So have a lot of lessons to learn, because things are not in black and white. Okay. There are a lot of things that, for instance, that you have a server. For instance, that you made a statement that you post to server. Are you following? For instance, that there was an electoral law which was not signed before election. But what is the reason? It is because of institutional weakness. If they say that it is only a tree that you say you want to kill and it will be standing. The president alleged that the whole thing was in bad taste. If you look at the intra-party problem that even produced the leadership of the National Assembly that presented, the president had every reason to distrust what they presented. I follow what I'm saying?
Sure.
So, institutional reform is very important. Intra-party squabble, intra-party politics in Nigeria is responsible for the, if you like, the fact that the rule of law is being assailed consistently.
Okay.
Because it will produce politicians who are supposed to come from the same family, and they will not agree. Otherwise, ordinarily, the electoral law would have been, and they wouldn't have had this kind of media. Okay, the leader of APC said that there are some media lawyers. The reason is because these things are not in black and white. I think this thing, I suppose the position is a waste of time, because according to what he said, and I'm not a lawyer, but I know that the lawyers relied on law.
Yes.
So anywhere we are going, the lawyers relied on law, even the judges. Yeah.
Before I go to the Honorable Minister, I noticed that Ajula was...
Yes, on this issue of SAVA, I think we need to really, I think the essence of sitting here is to educate ourselves and again try to not. The issue of SAVA, particularly, I don't want to believe that because of the issue of the leadership of the National Assembly, that is why, that is not the rationale for the president rejecting that for passing to the law. It was well stated that, you know, for you to sign everything to the law, you still have some other stakeholders. When it comes to SAVA, I believe one of the agencies of government, that is Department of Government, that has such a stake in SAVA will be the NCC. That is Nigerian
Communication Commission. Yes.
Advise the president that because of the issue of our connectivity, like in my village, you have to stand on some hills and mountains before you receive. And I'm sure in my hometown we have nothing less than 10 polling units. And how will you use such server? That is one of the reasons.
You have made a clarification there.
That is one of the reasons NCC so advised the president that because of the connectivity, network connectivity in Nigeria, server cannot at this point work. And the president so accepted such laudable advice. And let us ask ourselves the question. You are talking of the server. How manage with what they are coming, with all those places? In some states, only the state capital, you will see them having full connection.
Thanks for that.
How did you pass all those? I think that is the
reason.
That we need to really
now, to the Honorable Minister now. The judiciary and democracy in action celebrated cases within the period, controversial cases within the period, yet stable constitutional democracy on course.
Thank you. I think let me agree with my brother Ajulo on the issue of the not just the server, but the reason why the president did not sign, or the reasons why he did not sign the amended electoral law. There were many reasons. For instance, in the Niger Delta region, there are so many places, so many islands with people that definitely you don't even have connectivity. You can't make use of the phone, and you need to have internet. You need to, before you can connect anything to the server. So I think the problem we have is that sometimes we want to run faster than our legs. We have to crawl first before you think of learning to walk and all that. Democracy in America that we are copying from has lasted for over 2 centuries. And so when we go there to go and copy hook, line, and sinker, we must model our own democracy to suit the situation of our country today, where we are standing. Because if you are in a hurry to run into electronic voting, then you run into the problem that happened in Florida, where even America was confused, and they had to find a way to panel beat the result of the election between Bush and the, and the opponent, in order to make sure there was stability. Yes. And then there are also various reasons why the decisions of the Supreme Court is supreme, will go sometimes not necessarily through the legal angle. The issue of stability of the nation. What was the mood of the nation? The mood of the nation is that the president should continue, that he's doing a good job. That is the mood of the nation, before you even come down to look at the question of what was the result of the election. Nigerians would have been shocked if a man did so much, and at the end you come down and announce suddenly that another person has toppled him. I'm using the word topple, not a military palace, but it's in a democratic way, because they would have shown clearly that we were not appreciating the need for us to move forward. And then, so many things. This president came in, completed most of the projects we left behind in those days in PDP. And then even the ones that the last president left behind. And he has shown so much tenacity in terms of being able to reposition the country in the fight against corruption. And now even a local government chairman is a bit frightened of Ghana must go. If he sees the wife with it, he will ask, where is this from? And try to find out whether there's money inside. So a lot of people are being worried now. The greatest thing that had bedeviled democracy in Nigeria had been the issue of corruption. And he's fighting it so much. So definitely the results that we saw would not have gone the other way around. That's why I kept talking about the question of margin of victory. So the idea of electronic voting is not yet, we are not yet due for it. But we have to, we want to run. We want to, so like he said, there was suspicion even within the Senate. I was there. So why were we so interested? And we now found out what actually happened, that even in America, they are suspecting that Russia decided who their president should be. Up till now, there are many in America now who feel that this was not the president we voted for. Yes. And the man doesn't give a damn. If you do election 3 times, so long as there is Russia, he's ready to win election. So it means that somebody can hack into the system. And so if somebody had given you a number and said in the next election, this is the number you use to hack into, you must prepare and struggle for it. And that brings me to a point of a young boy who was reading so much about John the Baptist in the secondary school. And when he got to the school's paper, they said, trace the history of Jesus Christ from Judea to Samaria. They didn't ask about John the Baptist. And he proceeded to write. He said, who am I? A poor school child, a sinner, to comment on the life history of our Lord Jesus Christ. Instead, I will comment on the forerunner, John the Baptist, who came to prepare the way for the coming of the Lord, and quickly started jotting on John the Baptist. He was born in the city of Samaria. He went to this, and that wasn't the question. So the question of Sava in 2019 election was like that. Was like somebody who had the key to the server and thought that server was going to be used. And when eventually server was not used, the person went to the court and said, who am I? A voter in Nigeria to begin to vote without a server. He said, I must go back to that number I was given to check that this is the result of the election from the server. I think that was exactly the way I saw the whole thing. So it was a bit comic in nature, but to be honest with you, so far so good. I think we have moved a step further, and like he said, so many issues were raised, and amongst the ones were landmark decisions. Today, nobody can begin to talk about paper qualification so much in election. Once the person has shown that, yes, indeed, I have done A, B, C, D. I've gone to this college, I've been to this place, I've been to that, I've done so much courses. So the question of dropping a paper outside, maybe just my first school certificate, living certificate will not arise. So I think there were a lot of landmark decisions in that, in what happened. But on the whole, the democracy in Nigeria should not be compared to what happens abroad, because we are just evolving and we need to learn, and it's a learning process.
So as a lawyer, now, besides your position as a minister in the Federal Republic,
yes,
controversial matters, celebrated cases, and stable constitutional democracy on course.
We are learning, because if you ask me, from my personal opinion, outside the presidential election, I would say that yes, indeed, we still need a lot of improvement in the system. We need a lot of reform in the system. The judiciary has done very well, but there is room for improvement. And like some people will say, if you have 12 people following Jesus Christ, one of them will become a Judas. So even within the judiciary, you see have people who believe that they have 2 years to retire, and so they struggle to enter into election petition tribunal, and then because they have 2 years to retire and they want to take care of their children, so it doesn't matter where the money is coming from. They are going to collect the money, and at the end, they don't care whether they are dismissed, so long as they settle themselves. So those things still happen, and so it's now a function of the nation. The citizens must then cleanse themselves. It's a question of self-cleansing. No matter what, laws are made for fools to obey, but to guide the wise. We must realize that, yes, you can have the law, but if the practitioners of the law are not ready to keep by the rule, there's nothing you can do about it. The law will be there, but people will still do what they want to do because of peculiar circumstances of their families. And be very careful with politicians whose surnames start with them, because they have no integrity, they have nothing to protect. This is the problem that we are seeing. Be careful with people whose surnames start with them. The surname, if your surname starts with, if I meet a politician whose surname starts with him, then he has no background, no history.
I understand.
You understand what I'm saying? So I have to be very careful, because that kind of person will go to any extent. Yeah, you've seen cases in the Senate and the House of Reps where somebody will not contest election and will sit down at home and generate papers on primaries, and then he will be smiling at you. My brother, how is the campaign today? You say not bad. You don't know he's planning to take your seat. And then immediately after the election, he goes to court that he was the one who won the primaries. And all he needs to do is to walk into the party's office, get a lower officer to sign the delegates list for him, and he's in court. And you think it's a joke. It happens a lot, Anambra said.
Of course.
Before you know what is happening, he's declared the winner of the election, because it's the party that contests the election. Yeah. And he actually goes to serve the term, because he doesn't give a damn. That is a man without scruple. So those things are still happening. And so within the judiciary, others go there to the panel, not because they want to dispense justice, because they are going there to see whether there's any largesse and all that. But at the presidential level, the Supreme Court is there to settle the issues. And what the beauty of the current one in 2019 is the fact that the Court of Appeal can come out with such landmark decisions. They went step by step. They even solved the issue of whether or not His Excellency Atiku can contest election in the future. They dismissed it and said, do not talk about it. You can't start. We are not here to question his place of birth or whether he's a Nigerian or not. He has done so much. Everybody knows his antecedent. He has been a vice president of the Federal Republic. So why should we even question that? They resolved that issue in his favor. And they also talked about the president. I said the man has been a general. He has gone to Sandhurst. He has gone to this. He has done courses right from Nigerian Defense Academy. He has ruled Nigeria before. He has ruled a second time, and he's still ruling Nigeria. So why do you talk about qualification? He's able to communicate. So if a man is able to read, he's able to write, and he's able to communicate with his the citizens, his fellow citizens, why then do you bother about certificate and come to talk? You know. So the question of certificate also died. In this, so there are so many landmark decisions that they made there, which I think will help democracy in future. So on the whole, I think maybe my brother has something to contribute, but I don't know which angle he wants to take.
No. I just want to say a quick one. To add a quick one. Those matters arising, will conduce to reforms, institutional reforms. Exactly. For instance, when you come to a WAEC or its equivalent, part of the reform is to operationalize this equivalent.
I'll get to that. I'll get to that. But
that's
quickly from what the minister said, I want to follow on that. Now, in handling this issue, Judiciary and Democracy in Action. I'm trying to follow it bit by bit. Within this period, talking about 20 years of democracy in Nigeria, the judiciary, we have had some governors or some persons who would not have gone near the state houses of their states. And on the premise of a legal word called lucus classicus,
Yes.
we had cases of 2003, Kishingige, 2006, Chubiki Amechi,
Yeah.
Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti State,
Yes.
Adams Oshomole of Edo State, Rauf Aregbesola of Egu. They would not have gone near their government houses but for the judiciary. So within the context of locus classicus, what can you say?
Now, you see, I'm happy you mentioned that.
Yes.
And I continue to say, I don't have a brother, I don't have a sister on the bench at all. But let us be frank with ourselves. Our judiciary must be given not only a pass mark, but distinction.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, without the judiciary, the politicians would have since destroyed this country.
It's true. It's true.
No, I mean, and I'm telling you, I don't have any brother, I don't have any sister on the bench, but I'm telling you, I'm 62. I'm no longer a young man. How many more years again do I have to live? But I'm telling you that we have one of the best judiciaries in this country. I'm not saying that there is no need for reform, and there is no perfect institution all over the world. I'm sorry to say this again. My prof was saying about, is it democracy, perfection?
Approaching, that is, there's nowhere where you have a perfect.
Even America,
Yeah.
where you are saying we learn these things, there is a clear-cut democracy separation. There is no clear-cut separation of powers in America at all. Let me tell you, the Fifth Amendment, by the Fifth Amendment, the Vice President of America is the President of the Senate.
Yes.
So is that not a fusion?
So I'll come to you still on locus classicus. Let's take this call from Ogun State. Sunday, our first caller tonight, is calling in from Ogun State. Hello, Sunday. You're on to Tuesday Live.
I want to tell everybody that we are trying is not enough, that education without... Yeah, good evening, sir.
Go ahead, please.
Good evening.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm very happy to contribute my little effort to your word, because of education without no good character is a disaster. Our leader in this country today, they have no good character, number one. Everybody works for money. Nobody is working for the sake of Nigeria. We work for Buhari to be there because of we don't fear God. We like money more than ourselves. For we to make sure we keep our discipline continue, that's why the Buhari is back. But every man, every woman who disobey this voice will die without no regard. Because we don't want our effort of our hero to be in vain. Remember, whatever you people are doing, it did not pass the cloud. We don't know God. We are serving devil. We take devil as our God, while we send Jesus Christ as the devil. We have to be aware that we are not on the right way. We are not on the right way. Please, we need to change. Before F25, we must be able to be in team to defend Nigeria for the truth. Let's take everybody as equal.
Okay.
Let's keep education aside. Take everybody as equal. For all of you, all of us to be saved for this particular time. Please, that is my little contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sunday. I think if I understand, Sunday is talking about we should keep education aside and let's see everybody
Yes.
on the same plane.
And emphasize character.
On the issue of
Emphasize integrity.
I think the truth needs to be told.
Okay.
Many people raise, in Nigeria, we seem to always flow with what is convenient for us. On this issue of education, that's education qualification.
Yeah.
In Osun State, Ademola Adeleke happened to be the PDP gubernatorial candidate.
Yes.
During the matter in the court, this issue of his educational qualification came up. That Ademola Adeleke presented a WAEC certificate
Without
sitting only one subject, that is English language, with F9.
With F9, yes.
And
One subject?
One subject, and he got F9.
One subject?
One subject,
yes.
and F9.
What year?
That during the time. now the issue is this: the matter got to court, and the issue is that having failed the WAEC, he need to be disqualified. He need not to have contested, and for such person with everyone F9 in English and no other subject should not have been seen as a candidate of PDP in that election. But the court said no.
Yes.
The court agreed that that certificate is just evidence of his attendance of that secondary school.
Yeah,
so, and you can see everybody so happy.
No, but I'll ask a question, sorry. Was that certificate in 2017?
No, not 2017.
Well, so we don't lose track. We'll still talk about the issue of local classicals, but let's take this call from Adamo. Adamo is on from Benin. Hello, Adamo. You're welcome to Jesus Live. Hello, Adamo.
Hello.
You're on to Jesus Live. Go ahead with your...
So please, I want to make my contribution on the issue of the qualification of Mr. President, the issue of certificate. I think the judgment, the landlord, as well the election petition tribunal, has given no for the issue in the court for the no way anybody can treat our president.
Losing that call? Well, that line is inconsistent. But let's conclude on these locus classicals. You're on it.
Now, we started.
But you got my preamble on that.
Yes,
okay.
That is starting
that
from
on the premise of the judiciary in democracy in action. We have had cases of persons who would not have gone near the government houses of their states. But on the premise of locus classicals, these persons I mentioned are in government house, talking about the strength of the judiciary.
Put it this way, that you are talking about judiciary produced governors in Nigeria.
Not really.
No, I'm just saying.
Okay, go ahead.
People probably
did
people probably did not contest the elections, but the judiciary felt that they won the primaries or something.
No, not really. You get my point.
The principle he wants him to
I got what you are saying.
Yes.
Now, and that is why I started praising the judiciary. Do you know, in those cases you mentioned, I took part, by the grace of God, in many of them. Now, I'm not a politician, and I don't hope to be, and I don't pray to be. Now, when primaries were done, but different people were being sponsored after some undercurrent. And then the judiciary, in most cases, will say, look, somebody else won the primary. You send somebody else's name to INEC as your candidate. Please, it is that person who won the primary that should have been the person who had won the election. That is stability. And that's why I continue to say, I'm sorry, my brother minister, that without the judiciary, right from 1960 today, politicians would have since destroyed this country. No. You see, look at this thing. Look at Amechi, for example. In Amechi's case, this is the person who won. The other person scored how many votes? You say, no, it is that person. Supreme Court said, no, you cannot say so. So the locus classicals, and as you call it, locus classicals simply means...
It resolved a lot of issues.
It resolved a lot of issues for the stability and peace of this country.
Okay. Okay, you want to
I
cannot disagree.
The essence is this.
We are talking about judiciary and democracy in action.
Yes.
And within these 20 years,
yes.
I keep emphasizing, these persons without the judiciary would not have gone near this place.
Agreed, and that is why we adopt what the Lion Sake said earlier, that the judiciary need to be commended. Because in most of these cases you mentioned, this is where you see a clear case of injustice, where the power that be at that time seem to have tried to override the system, override the INEC, override even the voters. Like, let me cite an example. I'm from Ondo State. I think that is one of those beneficiaries of what the judiciary, how great our judiciary, and that is the reason we need to commend them, is the issue of Olusegun Mimiko. This is somebody that contested an election. People of the state voted overwhelmingly for him, but because of the issue that some people decided to thwart the system, bring different voters, that's when you see for the first time in the history of Nigeria.
You conclude. Let's take this call. He's been waiting. Sam is calling in from Makoni. Hello, Sam. You're on to Tuesday Live.
Inter-party issue is not about.
Okay, we lost. Conclude, please.
Okay, and this is when the power that be decided to thwart the system. But for the first time in the history of Nigeria, you have the names, the likes of Michael Jackson with their pictures. You like Jesse Jackson. You have Barack Obama voting in Ondo State. And judiciary having taken into consideration all those anomalies, all those defects, refused to set aside some votes and now brought in the right winner of the election. But that you cannot use the same to compare to what happened in this case we are mentioning. And the issue of Aregbesola too. And if you remember, we have this 140. Somebody has to come. They have to bring somebody from United Kingdom to go through all those thumb printing. And that's why judiciary even did their own arithmetic in saying that the rate at which you get such votes within 5 minutes, how manage you can have 50,000 votes, even if it is computer, even if it is machine, all those latest German machine, you cannot do that. And with that, the judiciary considered this to say this is wrong. And like I said, judiciary really comes in and they fit the way, and Nigeria will continue to applaud them and to thank them.
Okay, before we move on, I'll take on you, Honourable Minister.
Yes.
Wisdom is on to Tuesday Live from Oka, Anambra State. Hello, Wisdom.
Yeah.
Hello, Wisdom. If you can hear us, go ahead.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, God bless you all. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Yeah, I love the program. But I just want to ask the Honorable Minister and my governor, there is something I remember when he was the governor of Akwa Ibom State. There is a statement where he said that when you leave office, you will leave one project uncompleted. And so that whether we know that whether the next governor that's coming up will complete the project, because every other project he met on board, he completed them. But my question is this, and my contribution is this. I want to ask, our politicians today, they are not working for the interest of this nation. They are working for their own personal interest. And another one again, I don't know, there is our former president, but he's late now, Chuba Kadibo. He said that what they call political arithmetic. So, and that political arithmetic, when you notice today now, no politicians, they are not working towards that political arithmetic. What they will do for the interest of this nation, to lift this nation to the next level. Today we are talking about the next level. I thank God there's something the Honorable Minister said. He said that the present president now is fighting for corruption. Everybody knows that he's fighting for corruption. But you want to learn something from the judiciary. This judgment from the judiciary, there's something I learned from it. I learned so many things from it, meaning that our judiciary is working for the interest of the nation. So we have to support people to go to court so that for them to fight for a common cause, for them to get their right from the court. Because if you leave it for our politicians alone, our politicians, they are ready to kill and bury this nation one day. So I'm very, very happy for this live program. And this is my contribution. Thank you very much, and God bless everybody.
Thank you, Wisdom. Honourable Minister.
Well, Wisdom, thank you for your contributions. I would say that, yes, indeed, I did not say I would leave one uncompleted project behind, but what happened was that when I went into office, all the projects I made left behind by my predecessor, I completed all of them except one. And there was a reason for that. That was because the amount of money paid out to the contractor at that time, the amount was about 5.2 to 5.3 billion, but the total project cost was 5.6. So, and the delivery was not up to 20%. So I felt that the contractor owed the state, and therefore there was no need for me to go and add money until commensurate job had been done. And that, but all other projects I made on ground, I completed all of them. And then when I left office, I felt a few that we did not complete. I expected, or I still expect, the current administration to also complete them, because government is a building block. Yeah. And that is one of the things that attracted me to President Muhammadu Buhari, because when he came on board, even the amnesty program he met on ground, he continued. Then the airports he met that were not completed, he continued, he completed them. Yeah, even the one at Lagos, the one at Enugu, and even the one in Abuja. And then he made a rail line that were moribund, and bed contracts have been given. He continued, he funded them and made sure that those things are ongoing. The road between Lagos and Ibadan, you can see what is going on. Even the rail tracks, they are almost ready. So for a man who came in, he wasn't looking for self-aggrandizement or self-praise. He was more or less thinking of the interest of the next generation, the next set of Nigerians, what he calls the next level. So I've got very attracted to that, because that was the same spirit that I went into government when I became a governor. But when we look at the judiciary, I must agree with my brother that yes, indeed, the judiciary has done well. But I'm still saying that there is need for reform, because you have to look at the intendment. You can't control everybody, and you have so many panels, and then sometimes the panels at the state levels, at the senatorial level, National Assembly levels, and all that. There are some people who go in there with different intentions, and then some of them are so politically minded that when they go in there, if your husband is like a secretary to government in the PDP state, you go in there and everything you are doing is for PDP. And so we must evolve to a state where there will be true umpires from the judiciary, where when you see a judge, the judge comes there without any bias. Like the son said, he has no intention to be a politician. And I'm telling him, don't come. That even me, I've tried to join him again as a lawyer. I'm almost 33 years at the bar. So I'm coming back to you. You have to give me sonship. so this is the situation. Exactly. So the judiciary has done well, but there is need for reform. And then we must also have punishment. I give you an instance, because why I'm saying this is outside the presidential tribunal or sittings that we are talking about. Below the presidential sittings, we have a lot that we need to reform. For instance, where judges intentionally keep cases beyond the 180 days, provided in the Constitution for judgment, it means that that judge has frustrated the petitioner. Am I right or wrong? Yeah. And so the punishment must come. So we must also look at that, because when we're framing the amendments to the different acts and the different and the Constitution, nobody thought of that. That yes, you finish your cases in 180 days. Supposing somebody packs 9 cases and bundles and jumbos and all that, at the end, is unable to give judgment in 180 days. The petitioners are frustrated, and then that can lead to self-help. So, but in the current democracy, we must not only praise the judiciary, we must also praise the Nigerians who have adhered to what you call locus classicus, decided cases in Nigeria. You must praise the populace, because you've not seen in any place where people are carrying cutlasses after judiciary has spoken. So we are still there saying, yes, a judge, he speaks ex cathedra, and whatever comes out from the mouth of the judge ought to be taken as truth. But thank God we have, of course, different layers. So if at the lower level, they have not done well, then you go to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal will clean it up. And if there's anything still left, the Supreme Court will take the lead. So the idea of the obedience to the rule of law is what we must praise the Nigerian voter. Okay. And that is what is keeping democracy going. And if we continue in this path, 50, 100 years from today, democracy will continue to thrive in Nigeria. That's one thing that I know.
Well, the focus once again is judiciary and democracy in action. When we return, we shall be looking at what role has the judiciary played to ensure that politicians and political parties adhere to party ideology. We also had something missing when democracy returned in 1999, internal democracy. Has the judiciary played a role in this? What also has the judiciary done regarding judicial activism? Has it played a role? And also the issue of staggered elections when we return after this time out.
The attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs) relating to primary and junior secondary education is being driven by the Universal Basic Education Commission, UBEC. The UBE program is providing free basic education for every Nigerian child of school-going age, with government's increased relevance through access, quality and equity. That is not all. The UBE program is also ensuring the acquisition of ethical, moral and civil values needed for a better society.
Nigerians, our fearless officers and men of the Nigerian military are winning the war against Boko Haram. Today, all occupied territories have been recovered and Boko Haram has been degraded. Our affected brothers and sisters are getting their lives back. However, they are now after you and me. In our mosques, churches, schools, motor parks, markets, entertainment centers, and public gatherings. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me. Nigeria unite against terrorism.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The struggle for independence had been a long and tough one. Our founding fathers and compatriots sacrificed their comfort and even shed their blood. We cannot at this point in history afford to spirit away their sacrifices for immediate but temporary gains of today. Let us emphasize what unites and not what divides us. Working for the unity of purpose with a stronger vision for a better tomorrow. NTA, growing with the nation.
Nigeria, the only country we can train with remarkable potentials to excel. Let us believe in ourselves and change our attitude for the sake of our country and generations unborn. Let us revive our cultural values, which are our essence as a nation. Let us renew the spirit of patriotism and hope in our dear country. Do not take or give bribe. Be punctual always. No more African time. We can't expect to be global citizens and operate on African time. Join the queue. Insist that people are attended to on a first-come basis, no matter who they are or where they come from.
Nigeria, good people, great nation.
Make you report any crooked person, object or wakajube movement to police and security agent demo.
The security of our nation now work for all of us, plus including me and you.
Nigeria, make we unite against terrorism. Now, Federal Minister of Information and Culture bring on this message.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying tuned. The focus once again is judiciary and democracy in action. Besides the phone calls and the tweets from social media, which we'll take eventually, we also give Nigerians a chance to bear their minds and let our thoughts on the place of judiciary in democracy in action in Nigeria. Let's take a listen.
Regarding this judiciary issues, which it has been part and parcel of Nigerian constitution, based on what we see from the election, that is 2018 election, right? 2019 election. Buhari has won that election fair and free.
Started work. He needs to complete the job. All we just need is let there be a continuity from him.
at least he may end all what he has started goodly.
Judiciary should play the role of an umpire, an impartial one, and it should be seen to be impartial by all.
Of course, judiciary is one of the arm of government. One of the problems we're having in Nigeria as a country today is our institution. The institutions are not well strengthened. I believe if the institutions are well strengthened, there will not be need spending public resources on litigation. So I think it should be we should avoid having all the litigation issue rather than going to court after election and all those stuff. I think it's preventable. It said, of course, we don't know more than the judiciary. It's an institution, of course, full of learned people. If they said this is right and this is right, of course, we should be okay with what the decision is.
When democracy returned in 1999, a lot of things happened within the political parties, and that thing was called internal democracy. What role did the judiciary play to ensure that internal democracy played out within the political parties? Let me take that question to the Honourable Minister, Niger Delta Affairs. Did the judiciary play a major role to ensure that internal democracy, I beg your pardon, returned to political parties?
Well, thank you for that, but really, you already know the answer. It still comes back to your issue of locus classicus, because it was the lack of internal democracy that led to most of those fantastic decisions that you are now referring to as locus classicus. The judiciary had to step in. There was a lot of confusion, and internal democracy was lacking in many of the political parties. In some instances, you see primaries holding in two different places and all that. And at the end, the people running the political party will, sometimes it was not a function of the highest bidder and all that. So the judiciary stepped in and said, no, there must be discipline, there must be law and order. And if you set the rules, you must obey the rules. And so if you set the guidelines, you must obey your guidelines. Most political parties did not. It was a function of this one winning election and the other person then being submitted. In some instances, some names were submitted while the people were abroad and did not even take part in the primaries. Yes, and so the judiciary had to, and that is where we must commend the judiciary, yes, because they did very painstaking jobs. And then, of course, even from one Ambra said to the case in Rotimi Amechi's case, which is the first one that you know, I actually was a candidate also at that time. Rotimi actually won as a candidate, but I recall when we went to Port Harcourt for the regional congress to present the flags, the then president said this one get care-like. Yes. So it was now like an arbitrary decision. Yes. It was, where this one get care-like. And so whatever it was, the law presumes somebody to be innocent unless pronounced guilty by a law court. So even if you felt the person had issues, you needed to wait until it was so pronounced by a law court. And in the absence of it, the person was qualified to contest election. So when it was given to somebody who did not even have up to the half of the votes he had, the judiciary stepped in and corrected. The only thing is that the judiciary, out of anger, did not order for a fresh election to enable him to become a candidate. The judiciary said, since it's a political party that won the election, be sworn in at once. And so
what word of caution will you have for political parties? Because they have pockets of them happening now.
They must adhere to their rules. And even the political parties that are not doing well, you can never tell. You could go into an election and the kind of Samfara issue occurs. And then you that thought that you will not win the election, you are now faced with victory. But then the issue of internal democracy can knock that victory out of your hand. So no matter the political party, whether you are number 5, you are number 10 on the lineup, in terms of popularity in the country, adhere to internal democracy. And that way you will not have problem with the judiciary. But I think the judiciary has done well. Okay. Almost all the political parties are sitting up. And you try to see them. Sometimes when they bring out their presidential candidates, even inside a hall or inside a church building, inside a church, they are doing their convention in the church because they don't have enough members. You see them struggling to do the voting. And I know that they are doing that live to show INEC, they invite NTA and all that. They want INEC to say, look at us, in case the others are not able, they quarrel to a point they can't make it. We did well with our internal democracy. So I think that is something that we must commend the judiciary.
Okay.
And political parties are sitting up.
Well, a couple of tweets came in while we were on break, and let me quickly take this from Abimbola King 2. President Buhari is trying on fighting corruption, but I implore him to do more on security, power, and unemployment. Maybe we touch on that when we get back to you. And the second one from Aminu Suleimani. We have to commend our judiciary for 9 hours reading the judgment. There is need to make election institutions more independent so that citizens can have confidence on the election outcomes. Those are the 2 tweets that came in. And from those tweets, let me go to Professor Onyishi. Did the judiciary play a role in ensuring that political parties in Nigeria adhere or comply with party doctrines or ideologies?
Well, contributors have been submitting, the Honorable Minister, the learned Sam, the role of the judiciary in ensuring internal democracy and ensuring discipline within party through judgment, landmark judgment, like the one we have had in Zamfara. That one is a bank. That one in Zamfara is enough to send shivers through the spine of any party man that wants to mess up. Because it was to teach a lesson, like the party leader lamented, majority of Zamfara people voted for a party and they set aside their choice and their mandate and gave it to somebody voted by a minority. You see what I'm saying? So nothing could dramatize the vicissitudes, the negative impact of lack of discipline, judicial there. But in terms of ideology, ideology is an internal thing of a political party. But again, let me say, it speaks to opaque institutional condition that there's no difference. The issue in this country is about power. If the issue is about power, I presented a paper in 2015 where I singled out a politician I don't want to mention because of the position the person is holding. In the paper I presented somewhere in UK, changed within 3 years, changed about 4 parties, and came back again to where it is. If there is a doctrine, if there is a principle, if there is an ideological commitment on the part of that person, he cannot easily move from party to party. The tsunami that happened in 2012, 2013 in PDP, and then they moved into new PDP, and from there they moved into APC, the legacy of the mega party that emerged, took place because of contestation about power and about position. The problem we have in this country specifically is because of lack of ideology. Last week we saw what happened in British Parliament. Jeremy Corbyn, Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of opposition, that is the leader of Labour Party, you see what I'm saying? And all his followers and people from independent, from the Scottish Party, and so on, the way they were speaking to the Prime Minister, the way they were speaking to the Speaker, the way they were holding their position, the way they were even shouting, shame, shame, as they were going, showed you it was commitment to the party. Are you following what I'm saying?
Is that playing out now in Nigeria?
No. The problem we have in this country, it is not playing out because everything is revolving around power. So the overriding thing is...
I thought maybe some of the judicial decisions taken by the judiciary would have influenced, and we see a tilt towards that.
No, the judicial decision did not address the issue of ideology. Judicial decision addressed contestation for, if you like, political position. Ideology is a central idea, is ideas, central principles and doctrine that govern the choice of party to begin with, and the choice of policies, and the choice of issues to be put on the agenda of governance. Okay. That is ideology that guide those who are in governance. And okay, for instance, during the SDP, NRC, that's under Babangida, when they created a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left. You see what I'm saying? It was the Cookie Commission Bureau's recommendation was that you have parties that tend towards ideological tendency.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Let me hold you there.
So, but not now, not now.
Yes.
It is political power, that is the central thing. The overriding thing is to grab power among politicians. Okay. And that again is the undoing of our political system.
Okay. We cannot exhaust this without going, like I said, pushing and pull off. There has been this issue I read somewhere, they talked about judicial activism. Some decisions to the right, some to the left by the judiciary. They have some influence on our political, democratic picture today in Nigeria. This one has to do with the creation of judiciary that has made us have staggered elections. For instance, Anambra, Kogi, Bayelsa, Ekiti, Edo, Ondo, and Osun on different dates from general elections. What implications, Ajulo?
Well, I don't think there is any implication because those dates, those staggered dates, came about through the instrumentality of the law, particularly the court has already looked at it very well, and to have seen that there is a need for that. And mind you, the 28th of May being the day is not sacrosanct that it must be. If there's anything that, if there is necessity that it has to be changed, it has to be changed. Then on this issue of judicial activism, I'm always a little bit worried about when people talk, when we talk about.
But you know, people have been advocating the need for us to bring back the elections in one date.
Well,
after all this.
But the position of the Constitution is so clear that if the term is for 4 years. Yeah. So the question is that who we allow or who we accept his own term to be reduced or to be extended. I think the only way we can do that, if there must be any reason for that, will be through the instrumentality of the law. Either there will be a judicial pronouncement to that if that issue should arise, and I'd wonder how such will come about, or maybe the National Assembly will try to do that. But one thing again we have to know is that in as much that we try to maybe straight line it to come together, another issue will come up that will make it to be. I think it has come to stay, and that is the way.
Okay, let me take this call from Owerri, then we conclude on that before I take on another issue with the Leonard San. Jude is calling in from Owerri, Imo State. Hello, Jude. You're welcome to Tuesday Live.
Corrupt lawyer must definitely be a corrupt judge. As a leopard, they say, do not change her color. I also advocate for the appointment of judges in the country, not just by the president alone, but by NGC. I mean, who should have the exclusive preserve to do that without Mr. President's involvement if the independence of the judiciary should be guaranteed for an optimal performance. I call on the National Assembly to actually allocate a higher percentage of our national budget to the judiciary to enable them have a very conducive environment to actually operate fully, while their salaries should be reviewed upward to reduce the temptation of being corrupt, or being compromised by money to deliver judgment to the highest bidder. My view also is that the relevant government agencies should ensure that judges declare the assets every year to know when they will start living above their income and the tax method, according to the law, so that they will not actually be tempted to collect money from anybody to deliver judgment in favor of the person. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you, Jude. Jude has raised 3 concerns there: judicial independence, judicial funding, and the issue of regular declaration of assets by judges. Well, we'll talk on that. But before we lose track of where we are heading, there have also been this issue within the context. I'll come to you to conclude on that, of what I call rash and unconstitutional impeachments within the period. A case in point is Adamawa with Murtala Nyako, Enugu State Deputy Governor Sunday Onyebuchi, Bauchi Mohammed Garba Gadi, Ondo Ali Olonusi. The issue of rash and unconstitutional impeachments within this period by the judiciary. How do we contain that?
No, judiciary does not.
Well, on the surface of it, people see it this way, but the judiciary took it the other way.
No, you see, judiciary has never impeached anybody. Let us be clear. And judiciary has no power to impeach anybody. You see, what we don't know about the working of the judiciary, for example, let me say this. When we started talking about judicial activism and so on, if you don't bring your complaint to the court, even if the judge witnessed what happened, he cannot use his personal experience to pass judgment. No. If he does so, he's not sitting in consonance with his oath of office. It's the evidence you produce, the witnesses you produce, the documents you produce to convince the judge, not his personal experience. And this issue of impeachment, like I continue to say, our politicians have never learned, and they are not ready to learn up to now. I mean all. This issue of impeachment today, I had a very bad experience in Taraba, Abubakar something. That this thing was, but even after pronouncements by Supreme Court, tomorrow you hear a worse one in a state house of assembly and so on. There was one, they say that he was rearing chicken, and so that was an impeachable offense. Whereas by virtue of the fifth schedule, the only thing a retired judicial officer, any public officer can do is farming. Rearing chicken is farming, but that was the reason for his impeachment. After many of such cases had been set aside by the courts. The problem we have is that our politicians are just not ready to learn. Courts are trying by all means to correct them, but they are not ready at all. Even particularly at the state levels, I'm telling you, for some people, I tell them, look, leave it to God. Then there were no primaries. Most of the primaries were either conducted in government houses or in at some odd times of the night in some awkward places. But the issue then will be, when you go to court, how do you prove it? But please, our politicians have not started learning at all, and they are not ready to learn. And I mean all.
Yes.
Okay. My senior brother, Usman's son, I don't agree with you that politicians are not learning. I believe that we are learning on a daily basis, and we've managed to keep the politics going for the last 20 years. And like you said, you had bad market in 2015 because we did not go to the presidential tribunal. But 2019 was not bad for you. Without the politicians, even your staff in the office, you know, you have a lot of staff. They will not be able to learn the law. So the politician is trying, and then also putting you to test. But the issue is about the law. The Constitution is very clear that it is what the House of Assembly describes as impeachable offense. That is impeachable offense. The way you smile at your principal, the governor, may be in a very sinister manner, and then that can constitute the impeachable offense. It depends on that. And then the rearing chicken inside government house itself could be unbecoming of the person of a deputy governor, and that on its own can constitute the impeachable offense. And sometimes even your dressing, in fact, if you don't take time, the way you dance in public can constitute impeachable offense because it's not well defined by the Constitution. I think we need to have recourse to the real definition of what constitutes impeachable offense. If we can have that, like my brother Onyeshi was I'm right?
You are calling me.
Like he said, the question is that we must be much more definitive in some of the terminologies that we are using in the law in order to make it more lucid, so that there will be no ambiguity. And I think it is the ambiguity that makes people to interpret it the way they like. But it's true the judiciary does not engage in anything about impeachment. It's only when the chief judge is called upon to constitute a panel, and I think that's where his job stops. And he does that, and it's in compliance with the law. So yes, we have had impeachments that were very funny, but we have also had judicial interventions that are commendable. Very commendable. Very commendable. Yes, because even in Adamawa, you are talking about the judicial intervene. Yes. And then, of course, even in Enugu State, the case in Imo State, yes, almost recent, the judicial intervened. Yes. The only thing is what happened, they almost ended up with 2 deputy governors. Yes. Because the one that was judicially brought back was still the deputy governor, the de facto and de jure. So the issues are very clear. But on the whole, I think you must commend the politician for trying to. There was need. It wasn't like this. There was a lot of political rascalism when we started, but you see that everybody's trying to settle down. Like we talked about internal democracy. In most instances, it wasn't there. But it's not true now, because also the idea of staggered elections will help our INEC.
Yes.
The INEC itself, for the INEC officers, the independent national electoral officers, they need continuous training and retraining. And the best thing is even training on the job. So the staggered election, in a way, is also good.
Pilot?
Yes. So they will use some of the elections they are doing as pilot test for the next general election. Yeah, that's the simple truth. Because if you leave them and they do election once in November and they stay for the next 10 months collecting salaries and mixing with politicians until they come back again one more time, it's not good for them. But within that time, there is a lot of training and retraining, and then they have pilot schemes going on and all that. Like we have even attempted pilot program on the use of server in one or two of the elections, not for the purpose of announcing results, but for the purpose of seeing how it will work. And that was when we discovered that it would have been almost impossible to use it nationally because of lack of coverage. And that was where the National Communications Commission came in. And so if we had signed the amended Electoral Act for the 2019 or in 2018, we would have had problems where a lot of people would have been disenfranchised. Many of the communities in the riverine area of the Niger Delta would not have been able to vote. So SAVA did not come in 2019 because of that. And that's why I said we have to learn to crawl before we walk. So staggered election is good for democracy. It's also good for the electoral umpires because they are learning on the job. And then, of course, it will help them to do self-cleansing. The judiciary has a fantastic system now. You have the National Judicial Council where no matter what you do, you still get back there. Once you are taken there, whether you like it or not, two things will happen. If your reputation will stand or will fall. Because that is the problem. That's why I'm saying it's very key that we determine where you want to be. You want to stay on the side of sand and practice law and forget politics, stay there. If you want to join us, you must get ready for the hues and cries of politics. So for a judicial officer, it's such that when he makes a pronouncement, somebody can go to bed and sleep and say, yes, my Lord was right. Look at the way he interpreted it. I did not see it that way. But where it is very clear that A is white, and then the judicial officer tries to bring something that was not even there to add to it to say it is white and blue, then we have higher courts to correct those things. So we are doing a lot of self-cleansing. I believe that in 20 years of democracy, we haven't reached that there, but we are getting there. With this last decision, just done by the Court of Appeal in the presidential election, you can see so many issues have been laid to rest. The issue of are you qualified to contest election? The issue of which country are you from? The issue of where is your area of residence? The issue of also residency qualification. All those things have been laid to rest.
Let's take this caller from Akwa Ibom State. Hello, Eme. You are on to Tuesday Live. Hello, Eme. You are on to Tuesday Live.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yes, this is Ene from Akwa Ibom.
Go ahead.
Ene, not Eme.
Okay, Eme.
Ene, E-N, not E-M.
Okay. Eme. Go ahead.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening. Go ahead.
Coming from Akwa Ibom.
Okay.
Okay, good evening, sir.
Go ahead with your contribution, please.
Okay, yes, I want to first of all congratulate our president for the current recent victory in the court. Yes, I want to congratulate our president first of all for the victory in the court. I want to say that it was truly a deserved one.
Eme, please go ahead. We are listening to you.
I want to also say that the judiciary is to be commended because in every winning in the court, the winning factor is the evidence that is being presented. The evidence that is being presented in the court that gives the winning in the court. And also, I want to also congratulate my able governor and my senator and also my latest minister for Niger Delta, Mr. Dr. Godswill Akpabio. I want to say that this my cause should also be helping, making touch my life as well, because we see him as the Messiah of Asylum State, and like Jesus Christ, I used to touch people's lives, and I know that he's going to touch my life tonight.
Thank you very much, Eme. Well, Eme should know that we are discussing judiciary here. Well, he has congratulated you, and maybe you look for you to touch his life. Well, you wanted to add your voice to the issue of staggered elections?
No, I was going to say that is a veritable and a very commendable creature of the judiciary.
Yes.
You remember that in 2007...
Was it by accident or what?
No, by inexorable process. In 2007, Senator Andy Uba had been sworn in under the platform of PDP, you know, because they said the tenure of P2B had ended. Because the tenure, because of the way he came in, again through courts. Are you following?
Absolutely.
Then his tenure, they said, the part of it had been served by the governor he replaced, who did not win the election. Are you following? Now, when this man was won, I don't think he stayed up to 3 weeks. And the Supreme Court passed the landmark, and that landmark because it was a turning point. And that in fact, judicial reference is made to it. It became a landmark judicial precedent. You see what I'm saying? So it's very healthy interpretation because in Britain, for instance, where they have a written constitution, judicial pronouncements, see what I'm saying, and court ruling and other decisions of the court is a veritable part and parcel of the constitutional system. I feel what I'm saying. So that's very good as far as judiciary is concerned. And it has to be like that, like the minister pointed out. It has to be like that. It is the beauty of our own democracy. And it gives our own democracy its uniqueness. But that's not my worry. My worry, for instance, referring to the Honorable Minister, is saying that Nigeria is not yet matured. Look, there is nothing as urgent and there's nothing as important as fixing the electoral system. I'm telling you. The electoral system is so opaque that a person was elected as a president in 2007 and he condemned an electoral process that brought him. Yet, the institutional condition was such that a very shocking and paradoxical event took place. The Supreme Court, at the end of the day, returned a ruling that he was duly elected. But this is a candidate who came and said that even the electoral process that brought him was...
But you know, somebody called and said evidence is very important.
Thank you.
I am coming, sir.
I'm coming. Evidence put forward.
I'm coming, sir.
Yeah, okay.
That is because, again, leaving the judiciary, not because I love them so much, but because of the nature of the trajectory. Yeah. The politicians have to do a lot. Because this is Tuesday Live, is a policy dialogue, as far as I'm concerned, particularly happening in NTA of all television houses. And I'm sure the lawmakers are listening to us. The politicians, it is the law the politicians are making and they're amending to give to the judiciary. So when they go to court, they bring the law made by them, as in the case of the presidential judgment. This is the law people made. This is what he said. Where am I going to get the judgment to expect him? You see what I'm saying?
Okay, Ajulo is a...
Well, you tried to raise the issue of what happened in 2007, but we should not forget one thing, that what is presented to court is not Father Christmas. It is what you present to court is what it is. And mind you, I remember that in that case is where one of the counsel to the party in that matter even happened to be the one that endorsed and notarized most of the salient facts, particulars to be used in that case. And having that one offend the position of the law and rules, it was set aside. You can see technically, one way or the other, that there's no way the petitioner can have his way in that 2007. So it can't be that, like what the Landed Six mentioned earlier, that even in a situation where the judge will even witness happening of certain issue. He cannot even see. What we still wait for, some people must come to bring the evidence, testimony. It is based on that testimony that will happen. Even in a situation where the matter can be the way you are saying, that somebody say, yes, I came through. And mind you, President Yar'Adua, the late president, should not be quoted out of context. Not that they make it so clear that his own election, but the whole gamut of election seem to be faulty. So we should not use that one to see how it is. I just felt
okay. Moving on now. Let me ask this very compound question to the Leonard son.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
There's something that people don't understand up till now.
Okay.
This Sava INEC Sava thing. you see,
we're done with that. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, that particular aspect. Now, you see, when these people, some people went to court, they said INEC had a particular server, www.factsdon'tlie.nigeria.com. We said we don't have that www.factsdon'tlie.com. Nobody says that INEC doesn't have a server. Server is a simple thing. A computer is a server. Anything you store something in. But when you quoted a particular server, and you say, it is just like telling me, I should show you my yellow wife. I say, I don't have a yellow wife.
Okay.
And you say, no, I must bring her. From where?
You know,
in most cases, you see, I can't help my opponent. I cannot help my opponent to prove his own case, especially where the opponent seems not to know where he's even going.
Okay.
And the judge cannot help you to
the burden of proof was so burdensome.
Yes, you see, you who are complaining have that burden to prove that what you are saying is true.
Thanks for the elucidation. Let's move. I want to ask one compound question to you.
Compound.
Is INEC overprotected by law?
No, INEC is not overprotected by law at all. If you look at it, the Electoral Act does not protect INEC at all. In fact, there are provisions for sanctioning, punishing INEC staff who misbehave. They are not don't talk of over. When you say over, it means there is the protection. The protection is not there at all. And if you look at it, the only thing is that INEC cannot. You conducted an election. INEC cannot say, I'm not going to defend this election I conducted because you conducted it. Okay. But INEC is not protected. Anybody who tells you that INEC is protected, I'm sure has not yet read the electoral.
Okay, before we wrap up generally, our focus has been judiciary and democracy in action. We have tried to break through, push in, pull out, and we are heading somewhere. Now, 20 years on, what hope for Nigeria's democracy with what we have all discussed? Let me start with you, Ajula.
Well, the hope for Nigerian democracy is
with judiciary.
With judiciary, if, and I believe this is the way it will continue, if the judiciary will continue with these paths of which they have been doing, I believe it's a eureka for democracy in Nigeria. For the past almost 2 hours, we've been ruminating on what judiciary has done, and you can see that we are in hard consensus, addendum, that judiciary has already contribute so much to this democracy than any other organs of government. And one will say it didn't come to me as a surprise, because irrespective of what even during when we have military regime, autocratic regime, all judiciary always seem to stay. And I believe that one has already rubbing on judiciary to being that they've been steady to really take the bull by the horn and to ensure that today they've been trying to make it work. Like what the Leonard mentioned earlier, that if not be for judiciary, not only that the politician will have messed up, they will have been killing themselves.
Yes.
But because of the judiciary, you still believe that before, we always believe that judiciary is the hope of common man, but the truth of the matter is that the real hope of big men happen to be judiciary. And I believe one day our politician will set aside a month, I'm not talking of a day, set aside to really, if possible, to celebrate judiciary, to say this is what this system has done for Nigeria. Honestly, it is not that maybe one try to embellish what is not what was not embellishable. This is something. Just imagine without judiciary, what would have happened? Right from the time of even 1999, I know what has happened in different ways. Unfortunately, we seem to be so fixated on issue of democracy. In some other issues, we are happy, we are singing. We are singing, we are happy because of one thing, because of judiciary. If not, don't be surprised, we may be going and you find out that somebody has been killed. Why? Because you have nowhere to go. But you still know the tension is down, and that one will give you this thing. And one thing again, we have to I must say this. One thing we have to do is to commend this Justice Garuba,
Mohammed
Garuba led panel. Many people, even my wife asked me this question: how can you be in court for 9 hours? So because of the media, Twitter, all those social media,
misinformation.
Because of that, they just took it from the beginning to the end, issue after issue, just to know this, just to let you know that this is what it is. I think what kind of transparency do we need more than that? And that is what the judiciary has done. And despite that, of course, some mischief maker will try to really pay them back. But I believe gradually we'll get there.
Let me take Professor Nshi's perspective.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a political scientist. I'm still worried, but I hope we're approaching democracy. Institutional reforms is the key. Even the judiciary's job will be lightened. Even the burden of proof will become less burdensome to petitioners. Institutional reforms. You know, we didn't talk about state level. We didn't talk about what is happening at state level, as if state is not part of the Nigerian Federation.
He talked about it.
Well, okay. We are, in most cases, houses of assembly and local governments and the pockets of the governors. We have left that one very quietly, as if it's an untouchable. But maybe another day it will be a topic of another national dialogue. As far as I'm concerned, the politicians have to lighten the job of the judiciary. First of all, let's begin with electoral reform. It has to take place. It has to be signed for something time, and then a lot of things need to be changed. If you talk about the common man, Thomas Hobbes says to move from a state of nature is nothing but to make clear-cut laws. To talk about rule of law is to make the law very clear. That even in vernacular, if it's interpreted to somebody, he knows what it is. All this hullabaloo, all this crisis, all this tension is when the laws are not clear. If they're not clear, they'll be subject to interpretation. And interpretation will be self-serving. And then the mighty will become the lawful. Are you following? The mighty will become the lawful. A certain, is now late, professor of law, University of Nigeria, George Amadi, presented in 2012, presented the inaugural. Do you know the title? For lawyers. He's a professor of, I think, commercial law. He said, legal jiggery-pokery and political jaywalking in the politics of Nigeria, in the governance of Nigeria. Legal jiggery-pokery and political jaywalking. It speaks to opaque, ambiguous institutional condition. That throughout it spoke volume, and you look at it. What the laws are made and things that should be changed are changed. If you want to help the common man, begin from institutional reforms.
Okay. Let's hear your perspective.
Yes, I am happy that all of us here are commending the judiciary. You see, I don't like blanket condemnation. When somebody is doing well, if you commend him, he'll be spurred into doing more.
Yes.
Please let us commend our judiciary. And tell our politicians, please be ready to learn. They are not yet ready to learn.
Okay. The learner silk. I know you don't want to be a politician, but we are learning. But I just want to join them to commend the judiciary. on the whole, I think the next time this topic actually should have been democracy, INEC, and the judiciary. Because if INEC is doing its job right, then you have less acrimony. You will have less cases for the judiciary to adjudicate on. That's the simple truth. Where there is justice and fairness, in some places, we haven't gone into the state levels. You went to look at the state levels, you see that, like what happened in Rivers said, what is happening in Akwa Ibom and some other places, you see that most of the elections were either won or lost at the collation centers, not at the voting points. The president of Nigeria scored far more votes in my state, like 3 times what was declared. But he lost those votes at the collation centers to the PDP. That's why when PDP is crying, you know, a war of fear, you start wondering whether they actually know the terrain, the body temperature of the country. No, the president, nobody was ready to change this current president because of what he has done so far. Not just the stability, but look at the fight against insurgency. Before he came in, almost 13 to 15 local governments in Borno were held by insurgents. Many places, they were for the black of miscreants were hoisted. But those things are things of the past now. And we have forgotten the fact that children were used as bombers, self-suicide bombers. I mean, Marcus, even the late Emir of Kano was almost killed while coming out of the mosque by a suicide bomber. Those things are all gone. Slowly by slowly, he's making progress in the area of security. And then, of course, he made a recession in 2016, and he was able to take the country out of recession through just a systematic approach, using his own personal integrity to run the country, and he had brought back foreign direct investment and giving confidence to the international community. And so there were so many things from the economic perspective, even in terms of the infrastructure. Never in this country, since 1999, have we seen a president who has been able to put up to 30-something% of the national budget in infrastructure. Only President Buhari. I was a governor. And then there was no justice to the states. You see that sometimes NNPC would not even bring 1 naira. 1 naira in a month for us to share during the federation account. There was nothing. There was a zero allocation from NNPC. But that is not the case today. And then I left behind over 145 billion in terms of intervention on federal projects. This man has refunded so much of that money, to a point where in one day in the Senate, he approved 78 billion to be given to my state alone, from 145 billion I left behind in dualization of federal roads. And then the issue of Parade Club did not start from his time, but he came back and refunded the money to the states. My state, for instance, gained about $365 million US. These monies were there, but because of the injustices at that time, this is a man who believes that what is due to the local government should be given to the local government. He's crying for local government autonomy. What is due to the state, you give to the state. So he's a man who believes solidly in justice. So people took a lot of things into consideration. I did not start with him. I was in the PDP. I just steadily looked at the man and I said, this man shares my ideology that we should leave a better country for our children. I have a 7-year-old son. And I said, what kind of legacy am I going to bequeath to him? I went to a federal government college, so I learned to be a Nigerian. So when you look at his antecedent, you look at his credibility, you look at his integrity, you look at his focus on being able to get Nigeria out of recession, we would have gone into depression. But for this man. So I think the totality of it all shows clearly. That's why I said people are not looking at the body language of Nigerians in the 2019 election. There was no vacancy in the presidency. So the question of suffer or no suffer is no issue to me. The issue is that everybody wanted this president to continue. And so next time when you are bringing this kind of topic, just put the democracy, INEC, and the judiciary. Okay. Because the role of INEC is something you must extray. It is INEC that gives rise to so much litigations. Because when the electoral umpire is not truly an umpire, that's when you have problems. And that's when we are, maybe in future we can look at it. Because this president scored more votes than what was declared. And the people who stole those votes knew how to take care and compromise the electoral system, compromise even the security system. Okay, and that's why they thought they can compromise the server, not knowing that the server did not come. And this is the question I'm talking about. So next time we talk about INEC, but I commend the judiciary because working closely, it is even the judiciary that gives hope to democracy now. Because of what the judiciary has done, everybody is looking up to the judiciary. And that's why nobody has resorted to self-help. If they say you won or you've lost the election, you go to the judiciary because you expect one way or the other, if you don't get justice the first instance, by the second instance, before you get to the Supreme Court, justice will be there. So truly and truly, in the last 20 years, I would say that the judiciary has contributed immensely to the stability of democracy in Nigeria, and we are waxing stronger and stronger. And the politicians are obeying the judiciary. That shows that the politicians are not so bad. And without the politicians, your chambers will not be busy doing election petitions.
I'll still come back to you to the conclusion, but let me just throw this one sentence question to all of us before the Honourable Minister will conclude. Very brief. People say that conflicts between technicalities and factual evidences in some scenario can be threat to democracy. True or false?
Oh, I don't want to believe that. There was a time I presented a paper that where I mentioned that when it comes to election petition, election law, the law that governs election, is more of common law, not issue of equity. And this is something that follows strict rule and regulation. And what are these technicalities? Because I've heard it in very different places.
I almost forgot, that's what I'm asking.
Technicality itself has happened to be rules. These are the things you use to adjudicate and to fix whatsoever what is brought before what is before you. So for anybody to now say the technicality as one Armageddon as something that should be upheld, that should be jettisoned, it can't be. In the courts, there are rules in which you have to follow to present your case. Okay. And are we now saying that we should set aside such rule? For example, for you to contest the election, for you to be a candidate of any party today, there must be, we mentioned something about internal democracy. You must follow, you must pass through all this process. Now, and all those ones, it's part of technicalities. If we must explain it, let us forget whatsoever anybody will tell you. So technicality is part of the way to adjudicate and to settle some of these issues. Without technicalities, we will not settle any issue. It goes pari passu, and that is how it is. So anybody that wants to use, because technicality seems to be demonized now, to say, it's because of technicality. What is technicality? Why is it that Senator Akpabio is contesting that I cannot contest? Because there are some limitations that I have that may not allow me to contest.
Okay, let me hear the perspective of Professor Onishi.
As far as I'm concerned, is the ingredients of a healthy judicial and democratic system. If you remove technicalities, you go back to state of nature. Technicalities are intended to, if you like, standardize procedure. If you don't standardize procedure, then you don't have, because once you don't have a standard, then decisions and actions become whims and caprices. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So technicalities are intended to standardize procedure, both in the political process and the judicial process. I don't quarrel with it, because since they are applied sui generis, if you meet the technicality, you benefit or you suffer according as the merits of your case suggests. So we are getting back to the state of nature if you don't use technicality, because it will become intuition, the whim of whoever is taking the decision, or the caprice of the man who has an ill feeling towards a party. So, but if you follow technicalities, it means if the cap fits, you put it on. If the cap doesn't fit, that's it.
You see this thing? You see, I was a lecturer. Now, people mystify these things. You know what is meant by technicality? That is the rule. And it started by God.
It's standard.
Look, when Adam and Eve ate the apple, God knew they had eaten it, but God still called them. Let me hear you first, did you? That is rule, that is technicality. That is, don't condemn anybody before he's hard. Are you saying that we will not follow that? Now, that a public servant must resign at least 30 days before the date of the election. That is not technicality. In case he wants to stay and continue to do everything he wants to do and contest, would that be justice?
The electoral process, yes.
And now, if you talk of party primary, they say to conduct primary so that you know who the people support, who the people want, and that is a rule. If you don't do it, it's not unfairness.
Thank you very much.
That is how do you get to satisfy people that justice is being done?
Okay.
But the moment you say technicality, everybody thinks.
Just in a few words, let me allow Senator Pabio, Honorable Minister of Nigerian Affairs, to just next level and your ministry tied to judiciary in Nigeria.
Well, I thought you would still ask me something about that technicality, but they've done it. But my Leonard Silk would have said that right now there is less dependence on technicalities in our courts. The courts are not ready now to give too much. I don't know. Technicalities and all that. They love to look into the merits of the case before they look at the issue of technicalities. But really, it's actually good for practice that young lawyers should know that if you don't do this, you don't do that. But the one thing worries me, which I would have loved him to answer, where a lawyer intentionally does not follow the procedure laid out for filing an election petition, intentionally because he has been compromised, and then messes up the case. What happens?
No,
that's one.
Yes.
And then there are.
I'm just
mentioning anymore. But well, let's not go in here. Yes. Maybe later you answer on that.
Yes.
But the democracy, the judiciary, and my job as a minister of the Niger Delta, where there is no justice, there can't be peace. And so that's why the judiciary comes. The foundation.
Is the foundation.
In fact, where there is no peace, there cannot be development.
Yes.
And the Niger Delta is an area that had been neglected for so long. And so a lot of intervention agencies have been set up, from OSPA committees right down to the Niger Delta Development Commission, that now also to the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs. And you are looking at even the Ogoni cleanup that is starting now and all that. So much is now being put into the area, both in terms of focus and in terms of finances. So we need justice. With justice, there is going to be peace in the system, and with peace, we are now going to be able to have the necessary infrastructural development. So for the next level, we are looking at the Niger Delta, where the people will have commensurate piece of the action. Let me put it that way. Piece of the cake of the nation with what they have been able to bring. They've been able to hold the nation economically for a very long time, contributing the chunk to the nation. But most of them live in impoverished conditions, some on their canoes, and then they don't have fishes again because of the oil pollution and oil sheen on the water, and there's no oxygen going in, so they come out with dead fish. And then because of illegal bunkering, illegal refineries, so the soil is totally destroyed, and then they are unable to farm. And so we have started the Ogoni cleanup, and then the soil reclamation is in process, and the Ministry of Environment is handling it, my ministry is handling it, and so the focus is there. Yeah. But we also need some of the criminals we brought to book, and that's where we need the judiciary. And then we need the democratic process to continue so that justice will continue to play.
Thank you so much.
So it is from this justice, like I said, the idea of Party Club and even the reform of most of the interventions in federal government, what is going on now, even the continuation of the amnesty program, are the benefits of democratic practices.
Thank you very much.
Yes. And the benefit of a president who has integrity and honor and determined to change the Niger Delta region. That's why that region definitely must continue to pray and support President Muhammadu Buhari.
Thank you so much. I believe we have all the time we want to discuss and go on. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Let me start with Senator Godswill Akpabio, the Honorable Minister of Delta Affairs, for being on Tuesday Live.
Thank you for having me.
Yunus Ustaz Osman San, legal practitioner. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Professor Tony Onyishi, just nice having you.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
And Dr. Kayode Ajulo, thanks so much.
Great.
And to our viewers, our callers, those who sent tweets, thank you so much for your time, your contributions, and your line of thoughts. The focus, once again, has been the judiciary and democracy in action in Nigeria. On behalf of all of us, that's the package on Tuesday Live tonight. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.